Chapter 7 of 1001 Questions and Answers on General History. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. 1001 Questions and Answers on General History by Benjamin Hathaway. Rome. 1. Where is Italy? It is the central one of three great peninsulas that extend from the south of Europe into the Mediterranean Sea. 2. What is the size of the peninsula? Length 700 miles, width on the north 350 miles, and in the south 100 miles. From Smith. 3. What sea bounds Italy on the east? The Adriatic, called by the Romans Mare Superum. 4. What was northern Italy called by the Romans? Gallia Cisalpina. 5. Why so called? It meant the country inhabited by Gauls on this side of the Alps. 6. Into how many classes are the early inhabitants divided? Into three great classes: Italians, Iapygians, and Etruscans. 7. What did the Italians inhabit? The central part of Italy. 8. Into what two branches were the Italians divided? Latins and Umbro-Sabellians. 9. What seems to have been the origin of the Italians? It is evident that they are related to the Greeks, and at some remote period immigrated from the east. 10. Where did the Iapygians dwell? In the extreme southeastern part of Italy. 11. Who are they supposed to be? The original inhabitants of Italy who were driven to the south by the newcomers from the east. This from Smith. 12. Where did the Etruscans dwell? In the northern part of Italy, between the Arno and the Tiber, a league of 12 cities. These people were great builders and skilled in the arts. 13. Besides these three races, who else settled in Italy in ancient times? Greek colonists and Gauls from the north. 14. What general name finally included all the inhabitants of Italy? Romans. 15. When does trustworthy history of Rome begin? About the year 281 B.C. 16. Why no earlier than this? About this time the Gauls sacked the city and destroyed the records, and it was 500 years after the founding of the city before the first rude attempt was made to write a continuous narrative of its origin. 17. When was Rome founded, and where? 753 B.C. on the river Tiber, 15 miles from its mouth. 18. What did the Romans accept as the early history of Rome? A series of legends. 19. What is the legend of the birth of the founder of Rome? Romulus and his twin brother Remus, children of the Vestal Virgin Ray Silvia and the god Mars, were thrown into the Tiber. They were cast ashore at the foot of Mount Palatine, nursed by a wolf, and finally rescued by a shepherd and brought up by him. 20. What is the legend of the founding of Rome? When the brothers were grown, they determined to build a city near the spot where they had been so wonderfully preserved. Romulus desired to build on the Palatine Hill, and Remus on the Aventine. The dispute was decided in favor of Romulus by the aid of the shepherds, and he called the new city Rome after his own name and became its first king. 21. What became of Remus? He was slain by Romulus for jumping over the mud wall of the city in scorn. Romulus exclaimed as he slew him, "So perish everyone who may try to leap over these ramparts." 22. How did Romulus obtain inhabitants for the city? By making Rome an asylum for murderers, slaves, and thieves. 23. How were women obtained for the city? By kidnapping the Latin and Sabine virgins. 24. What is the real history of the founding of Rome as received by the best critics? It was founded by Latins as an outpost against the Etruscans, whom they greatly feared. 25. What was its probable size at an early date? It contained about 1,000 miserable thatched huts surrounded by a wall. 26. What were the inhabitants? Most of them were shepherds or farmers who tilled the land upon the plain nearby, but lived for protection within the fortifications on the Palatine Hill. 27. What was the early government? It was aristocratic. It had a king, a senate, and an assembly. Each family was represented in the senate by its head. 28. What was the influence of the senate? It was from the beginning the soul of the city, and shaped the public life of Rome throughout its entire history. 29. What was the Sabine invasion and league? The Sabines, a neighboring tribe, captured the Capitoline and Quirinal hills. After frequent conflicts, they came into alliance and formed one city. 30. What are the people of the two tribes called? Romans and Quirites. 31. What were their rights? Both had seats in the Senate, and the king was taken alternately from each. 32. Who was the first Sabine king? Numa Pompilius, the successor of Romulus. 33. What is said of his reign? It was prosperous. He built the temple of Janus and established religious institutions. 34. Who succeeded Pompilius? Tullus Hostilius, 673 to 641 B.C. 35. What may be said of his reign? It was as warlike as Numa's reign had been peaceful. His most memorable act was the destruction of Alba Longa. 36. What was done to the people of Alba Longa? They were taken to Rome and located on the Coelian Hill. The Albans and Romans now became one nation, as the Sabines and Romans had in the days of Romulus. 37. Who succeeded Hostilius? Ancus Marcius, 641 to 616 B.C. 38. What may be said of his reign? He conquered many Latin cities and brought the inhabitants to Rome, giving them homes on the Aventine Hill. 39. Who now conquered Rome? The Etruscans. 40. What were their characteristics? They were builders as well as founders. They adorned Rome with elegant edifices of Etruscan architecture and extended around the city a stone wall which lasted 8 centuries. 41. Whom did they place on the throne? Tarquinius Priscus. 42. How was his reign distinguished? By great exploits in war and great works in peace. 43. What improvements did he make? Built the great sewers of the city, many of which still remain. He also planned the great race course, Circus Maximus, and its games. 44. How did Tarquinius come to his death? Was assassinated by jealous enemies. 45. Who succeeded him? Servius Tullius, 578 to 534 B.C. 46. What may be said of his reign? It was very peaceful. 47. What great thing did he do? Reform the constitution and laws. 48. What other great work did he do? Extended the walls of the city until Rome sat on 7 hills. 49. Name the 7 hills included in the Servian wall. Palatine, Aventine, Capitoline, Caelian, Quirinal, Viminal, and Escaline. 50. Who were the 2 great classes at Rome? The patricians and plebeians. 51. Which was the ruling class? The patricians. 52. Who were they? The descendants of the first settlers. They were rich, proud, and exclusive, and demanded all the offices of government. 53. Who were the plebeians? The newer families. They were generally poor, forbidden the right of citizenship, and not allowed to intermarry with the patricians. 54. How did the patricians treat them? The plebeians were obliged to serve in the army without pay, and were thus forced to borrow money of the patricians. If they failed in their payments, they were sold as slaves by their creditors. 55. Which class did Servius help? The plebeians. 56. How did he classify the Romans? He divided them into 5 classes, based on property instead of birth, and these into 193 centuries or companies. The people were directed to assemble by centuries, either to fight or to vote, and to the new centuriate assembly was given the right of selecting the king and enacting the laws. 57. How did Servius come to his death? He was murdered by one of his sons-in-law. 58. Who succeeded him? His son-in-law and murderer, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus. 59. What was the character of the reign of Tarquin the Proud? It was very tyrannical. It lasted from 534 to 510 B.C. 60. What effect did such reigning have on the people? They became very much dissatisfied with kings for rulers. 61. What was the final result? They threw off the kingly government, and the tyrant Lucius, or Tarquin as he was called, was forced into exile. 62. What did Tarquin attempt? To regain the throne by arms. 63. What did the Romans do in this emergency? They appointed a dictator who should possess absolute power for 6 months. A great battle was fought at Lake Regillus, in which the Romans were victorious, and Tarquin gave up his attempt in despair. 64. What may be said of Rome for the next 150 years? It was a period of civil wars and internal struggles. 65. What action did the plebeians take about 494 B.C.? Their condition becoming unbearable, they departed in a body to the Sacred Mount, leaving the city to the patricians. 66. How did the patricians compromise? By cancelling the plebeian debt, and by assenting to the appointment of 2 magistrates called tribunes to be chosen from the ranks of the people. 67. What power was given the tribunes? They could annul any law passed by the Senate considered injurious to the plebeians by pronouncing the word veto, I forbid. 68. What was the next measure of relief granted the plebeians? The agrarian laws from Agir, a field. 69. What did they ordain? That part of the public or conquered land should be divided among the poorer people. 70. What change took place next? The decemvirate was appointed. 71. What was the decemvirate? 10 men appointed to have control of the laws. 72. How long did this last? For 2 years. Then the Senate, finding the laws favorable to the plebeians, forced the decemvirs to resign. 73. What remained as the result of the decemviral legislation? The celebrated Code of the 12 Tables. These laws were engraved on blocks of brass or ivory and hung up in the forum, where all could read them. 74. What kind of government followed the decemvirate? 2 councils were elected in place of the decemvirate. 75. What was the state of the plebeian power? In spite of great odds, it was continually increasing, and by 300 B.C., Rome possessed a democratic government. 76. What took place 390 B.C.? The Gauls crossed the mountains and started for Rome. 77. By what other name were the Gauls known? The Celts. 78. What did they inhabit? Gaul, the British Isles, and Italy north of the Po River. 79. What did the Gauls do with Rome? Laid the city in ashes. 80. What spite had the Gauls against Rome? Rome had fought against the Gauls in the Battle of Clusium. 81. What was the battle cry of the Gauls? On to Rome. 82. What is the tradition of the siege of the capital? The citadel, being built on a steep and lofty rock, held out for 7 months. At one time the Gauls, having discovered a narrow path up the cliff, had nearly reached the summit in the night, when the sacred geese, kept in the temple of Juno, began a loud cackling, which awoke the garrison. Marcus Manlius, the Roman commander, aroused by the noise, rushed out, saw the peril, and dashed the foremost Gaul over the precipice. 83. How were the Gauls persuaded to leave the city? By the Romans paying a large sum of gold. 84. What did the Romans now do? They partially rebuilt the city, but with great irregularity. 85. Who was the Roman leader at this time? Camillus, who led them in several successful attacks against the Gauls. 86. What was the domestic condition of Rome? A great many poor people suffered on account of the expense of rebuilding their homes. 87. What was the law of debtor and creditor? Those who could not pay their debts were carried away into bondage. 88. How was the domestic trouble settled? By a revision of the laws, the people at last became united, and were ready to commence conquering their neighbors. 89. Whom did they conquer first? After 3 Samnite wars, which occupied half a century with brief intervals, Samnia became a subject ally, and Rome was mistress of central Italy. 90. What was the next great struggle of Rome? The war with Pyrrhus, the king of Epirus, the greatest general of his age. He assisted the Greek colonists in the southern part of Italy, against whom the Romans had declared war. 91. What romantic incident is told of one of the battles of this war? When Pyrrhus looked upon the Roman dead, all of whom appeared to have fallen in their ranks, with their faces turned toward the enemy, he exclaimed, "If I had such soldiers as these, how easily I could conquer the world." 92. What was the result of this war? Pyrrhus was defeated, and having lost nearly all of his army, returned to Epirus. The Greek colonies, deprived of his help, were subjugated in rapid succession. 93. What was now the extent of Roman power? Rome was now mistress of peninsular Italy. 94. Where did Rome now turn her attention? To Carthage, the great rival republic, one of the wealthiest cities of the world. 95. Where was Carthage? On the African coast of the Mediterranean. 96. Where was the first battlefield? The island of Sicily, south of Italy. 97. How long did the First Punic War last? 24 years, 264 through 241 B.C. 98. What was the result? Carthage surrendered Sicily, gave up all prisoners, and paid $4 million. 99. Who was the great Carthaginian general? Hamilcar. 100. How many Punic wars were fought? 3, extending over a period of 80 years. They finally ended in 146 B.C. 101. Who made the invasion of Italy during these wars? Hannibal, the son of Hamilcar. He crossed the Alps with an army of 100,000 men, cutting new roads through the solid rock. 102. Who was the Roman leader in the Punic Wars? Scipio Africanus. 103. What was the result of these wars? Carthage, which had lasted over 700 years and numbered 700,000 inhabitants, was utterly wasted, and her territory became a Roman province. 104. What was the condition of Rome at this time? She now owned at least 10 foreign dominions, and was mistress of the civilized world. 105. What was the effect of these conquests? Rome was inhabited by a motley population from all lands, and the Roman race itself was fast becoming extinct. Patriotism was a forgotten virtue, and the soldier fought for plunder and glory. Though the nobles grew very rich, the curse of poverty ate deeper into the state, and the moral nature of the nation lost its vigor. 106. What great danger next threatened Rome? The barbarians had been collecting north of the Alps and were moving south 500,000 strong. 6 different Roman armies tried in vain to stay their advance. 107. What was the result of their invasion? They were totally defeated by the Romans under Marius, and he was hailed as the savior of the country. 108. What may be said of Rome for the next few years? Social and civil wars reigned almost continually. 109. Who were the leaders in the civil war? Sulla, who stood at the head of the Roman aristocracy, and Marius, the chief of the democracy. 110. What foreign monarch also carried on war with Rome? Mithridates, king of Pontus, maintained a struggle with the Romans for 25 years. 111. Who finally defeated him? Pompey, who also reduced Syria, Phoenicia, and Palestine, and in 90 days cleared the Mediterranean of the pirates that infested it. 112. When was Julius Caesar born? In the year 100 BC. 113. What other great men were born about the same time as Caesar? Pompey, 106 BC, and Cicero the same year. 114. What may be said of Cicero? He was the greatest of Roman orators. 115. Who formed a great conspiracy in Rome about this time? Catiline, who was defeated for consul, a profligate young nobleman. He formed a plot to murder the consul, fire the city, and overthrow the government. 116. Who delivered a speech against Catiline? Cicero. This speech is considered a masterpiece of impassioned rhetoric and is still studied by every Latin scholar. 117. What became of Catiline? He fell in a struggle for his capture after he had been convicted of treason in the year 62 BC. 118. What was the triumvirate? The chief men of Rome, Pompey, Crassus, and Caesar, formed a league known as the First Triumvirate. By the support of his 2 powerful confederates, Caesar obtained the consulship. 119. When Caesar was elected consul, what did he do? Set out to conquer Gaul, carrying the Roman arms into Germany for the first time. He twice invaded Britain, an island until then unknown in Italy except by name. 120. When did civil war again break out in Rome, and between whom? In the year 49 BC, between the friends of Caesar and those of Pompey. Caesar at once marched upon Rome, and in 60 days was master of Italy. 121. What was the result? A total defeat of Pompey's army took place on the plain of Pharsalia. 122. What became of Pompey? He was beheaded in Egypt, where he had taken refuge. 123. What was the cause of Caesar's famous dispatch? He marched into Syria and humbled Pharnaces, the son of Mithridates, so quickly that he wrote home, Veni, vide, vice. I came, I saw, I conquered. 124. Who now became the great ruler of Rome? Julius Caesar. He was created dictator for 10 years and censor for 3, and his statue was placed in the Capitol opposite to that of Jupiter. 125. What civil act did he do? Revise the calendar and several laws. 126. What is said of his government? Order and justice sprang into new life under his administration. 127. In the meantime, what happened? A great conspiracy was formed against his life by a large body of nobles. 128. Who were some noted ones in the conspiracy? Brutus and Cassius, the former his most intimate friend. 129. What was the result of the conspiracy? Julius Caesar was assassinated on the 15th of March, 44 BC, in the Senate. 130. What reason was given for his assassination? It was said he meditated making himself king, and Brutus was probably sincere in this belief, but the others seem to have been actuated by feelings of envy rather than of patriotism. 131. What was Caesar's character? He was the greatest man Rome ever produced. He was not only an able general and a consummate statesman and politician, but a splendid orator, a fine scholar, and an elegant writer. 132. What was his great crime? Having acquired power, he did not know how to lay it down, preferring to retain it, although in so doing he destroyed the liberties of his country. 133. What did he virtually become? The first emperor of the Roman Empire. 134. Who now ruled affairs in Rome? Mark Antony, the consul. 135. Who made orations against Antony? Cicero, who denounced him in fiery orations styled in imitation of Demosthenes, the Philippics. 136. What became of Cicero? He was killed by Antony's friends. 137. Who was next chosen consul? Octavius, a youth of 19, the great-nephew and heir of Caesar. 138. What form of government followed? A second triumvirate was formed between Antony, Octavius, and Lepidus. 139. What did this triumvirate do? They met Brutus and Cassius, the leaders of the conspiracy against Caesar, on the field of Philippi, and a battle was fought in which the latter were defeated. 140. How was the power apportioned? Octavius and Antony divided the empire between them, and Lepidus received Africa. 141. What became of Antony? He was ensnared by Cleopatra of Egypt, gave up Rome, and after being defeated by Octavius in a naval battle at Actium, stabbed himself. 142. What was the result? Egypt became a Roman province, and Caesar Octavius was the master of the civilized world. 143. What title did he receive after his return to Italy? Augustus, by which name he is known in history. 144. When did he die? August 19, 14 A.D., at the age of 26 years. The Senate decreed that divine honors should be given him, and temples were erected for his worship. The month of August was named for him. 145. What was the period of his reign called? This period, from 31 B.C. to 14 A.D., was called the Augustan Age, and was one of peace and prosperity. 146. What did he do for Rome? He beautified Rome so that he could truly boast he found the city bricked and left it of marble. 147. Who was the wickedest ruler? Nero II, 54 A.D. to 68 A.D. 148. What great crimes was he guilty of? The burning of Rome and the murder of his wife and mother. 149. Why did he burn the city? In order that he might blame the Christians and then have a pretense for their persecution. 150. What great man is supposed to have been put to death in this persecution? The Apostle Paul, who must have been at Rome at this time. 151. When was the Roman Empire divided? In 395 A.D. into an Eastern and Western Empire. 152. How long did they last? The Eastern Empire lasted at Constantinople for 1,000 years, but Rome, the capital of the Western Empire, soon passed into the hands of the barbarians. 153. How is the 5th century known? As the era of the Great Migrations. 154. What were they? The different tribes of Europe poured south and west with irresistible fury, seeking new homes in the crumbling Roman Empire. 155. Who were the 3 great barbaric leaders? Alaric the Goth, Attila the Hun, and Genseric the Vandal. 156. What took place 476 A.D.? The fall of the Roman Empire. The scepter, crown, and robe of the king were sent by the Senate to Constantinople at the command of the German chief Odoacer. 157. What illustrious Latin writers lived in the last century B.C.? Virgil, Horace, Cicero, Livy, and Sallust. 158. How did the Romans regard education? Very highly. As early as 450 B.C., Rome had elementary schools where boys and girls were taught reading, writing, arithmetic, and music. 159. What is said of the Romans as builders? In military roads, bridges, aqueducts, and harbors, they display great genius. 160. What road leading from Rome is famous for its beauty? The Appian Way. Its foundations were laid by Appius Claudius, 312 B.C. 161. What is said of the Roman bridges and viaducts? They are among the most remarkable monuments of antiquity. The Romans applied the arch to the construction of massive stone bridges, and valleys liable to inundation were spanned by viaducts resting on solid arches. 162. What other buildings were constructed on a grand scale? Triumphal arches, amphitheaters, public baths, and tombs. 163. What are some of the most famous ruins of Rome? The Forum, the Arch of Titus, Arch of Constantine, the Colosseum, and Baths of Caracalla. The latter contained 1,600 rooms adorned with painting and sculpture. 164. What was the religion of the Romans? A worship of the powers of nature, which degenerated into image worship. 165. What were the principal public ceremonies of their religion? Worship at the shrine of Vesta, the goddess of home, and offerings to the Lares and Penetes, the household gods. 166. What were their public festivals? The Saturnalia and gladiatorial shows. 167. What was the Saturnalia? A festival occurring in December and lasting 7 days, in memory of the free and happy rule of ancient Saturn. It was a time of general mirth and feasting. Wars were forgotten, criminals had certain privileges, and slaves were permitted to jest with their masters and were waited upon them at table. 168. What is said of the Roman laws? In the 6th century A.D., they were condensed into a code which is still the basis of the civil law of Europe. 169. What period is called the Dark Ages? The 6 centuries following the fall of Rome, 476 A.D. 170. What change finally took place in the barbaric tribes that settled in Roman territory? They were converted to Christianity. 171. What did this do for Rome? The people who, until the overthrow of the empire, had been accustomed to depend upon Rome for political guidance, continued to look there for spiritual control. 172. What was the Bishop of Rome acknowledged to be? The head of the Catholic Church throughout Western Europe. 173. What was the extent of the papal power during the Middle Ages? It was very great, increasing steadily till it reached its zenith in the 13th century under Innocent III. He claimed to be an earthly king of kings, and the papal thunder rolled over every nation in Europe. 174. For what is the 15th century noted? For its ecclesiastical councils, to which many monarchs appealed from the decisions of Rome. 175. What was the result of this tendency to resist papal authority? Rome was forced to confine its political action mainly to Italian affairs. 176. What Italian cities attained great importance in the Middle Ages? Venice, Florence, Pisa, and Genoa. 177. What was the power of Genoa and Venice? Their trading princes controlled the money of the world and became the first bankers, the Bank of Venice dating from 1711. 178. What is the Italian Renaissance? A new school of art founded at this time, which revived a knowledge of the treasures of Grecian architecture, sculpture, poetry, and philosophy. 179. What great men lived during this period of Florentine history? Michelangelo, poet, sculptor, and painter; the renowned artists Raphael and Leonardo da Vinci; and the famous reformer Savonarola, afterward burned for heresy. 180. What was the condition of Italy in the early part of this century? It was enslaved and divided by Austrian despotism. 181. What was the desire of Italian patriots? To unite the country under one government. 182. Who was proclaimed king in 1861? Victor Emmanuel. He controlled all Italy except the Austrian province of Venetia and Rome. 183. When did these two come under his power? In 1866 Italy got back Venice and Verona, and in 1870 Rome, and the king moved his court thither from Florence. 184. Who is the present king of Italy? Humbert I, son of Victor Emmanuel, succeeded to the crown on his father's death, 1878. End of chapter 7.